Hi guys, today let's talk about something that completely transformed my process when it comes to making my artwork and completely upgraded my quality of work as well, and that's using references. It's been a couple of years since I really diligently used them, but it's something that I'm really passionate about, so I'm excited to talk a bit about it. But really quickly, I do want to give an exciting announcement, and that is that my Inktober book from last year called Nocturne, that is officially up on my website. It is available at my shop, so if you'd like to get that for yourself, then there's a link right down in the description that will take you over there. I loved working on this book. This one's hardcover. It has a metallic on the front. And yeah, it's finally able to be sold to anyone who missed out on the Kickstarter. I also have the pin from the Kickstarter available over at my shop as well, so you can check that out. And yeah, let's just jump right in. Using references or studying things from life, they're all kind of grouped together, is such an incredibly necessary tool as an artist. Lots of us don't actually intentionally look up references, and we just go from what we remember things looking like. But in the end, that really is just coming from our visual library of things that we've looked at, things that we've studied, and then end up in our brain and stay there. So ultimately, even if you're not using references directly in a piece, that's all coming from the study that you've done. So by extension of that, if you're studying references more, if you're paying more attention to them, if you're taking them specifically for pieces that you're working on so that they match up with the pose and the lighting, then naturally those pieces will be better. They'll have better detailing and better flow to them because you'll be able to get details that you never would have thought of in your brain, but because you're able to observe it, you're able to actually display it. And that was honestly one of the biggest things that really studying references changed for me as an artist. That was creating artwork that had much more flow and dimensionality to it. Before I really got into it, my work was incredibly flat, and I really struggled with that. I found it frustrating that when I drew a figure, they tended to always be facing the camera, just straight on. Their arms would just be in these very static poses because that's all that I had in my brain. That's all that I really was able to imagine and make sense of. And the more references I used, the more I was able to comprehend how an arm would look if it's coming towards the camera rather than just the flat, basic lines of the arm. At this point, I have a few different approaches to using references. Probably my first and favorite way now is for me to sit down and just sketch out my ideas. I can get a composition down, figure out what I actually want the character in the piece to be doing, what pose I want them to have, and just figure out all of that and the idea and the negative space around the character. And then afterwards, I can go and take reference myself that will fit that. Usually when I sketch something out like this, there's never going to be a perfect reference that exists elsewhere because I had a very specific image in mind. I had that goal, and usually it's wanting an arm positioned in a certain way and then the other arm in another way and then the rest of the body moving in a certain way. So there are a lot of components that go into it being very specific to the piece that I wanted to create. So at that point, I'll have to take references myself, and usually I'm able to take it myself, which is very nice and convenient, but you can always get someone else, get a friend. It is definitely a lot more of a struggle and an issue, though. There are also other options of being able to just find reference that fits a general feeling that you want to go for your work that does work for that. Or one of my second favorite ways to work out, if I can't find that exact pose that I need, I will sometimes Frankenstein together different references where maybe I can find an image where the top half of the body is right, or everything but one arm is right, but I can find reference, or I can take it specifically of my own arm and then I can just stitch that in there and make the entire reference make sense after that, and then everything just flows and it has that idea that I had in my initial just sketching imagination session, and then I'm ready to go, and then I know what it would actually look like, and I know how everything works at that point. And the big benefit that if you're finding reference rather than taking it yourself with compositing things together is that in the end you'll end up with something that is much more unique. And then on top of that, you can filter it to have your own view and your own approach to it, so that in the end the goal is to have it completely unrecognizable from the reference that you found, because that reference does belong to another artist, a photographer, someone else who created it. So you want to be able to use it to figure out the forms and how a human body looks, but you want it so that when you lay it out, no one would think that that was something that was used. You want it to be something truly unique and its own thing and your own thing. And then that piece of artwork becomes truly yours, which is exciting. I love that process of building something up so that it becomes unique. And another way to use reference, which is really helpful if you're struggling with when you use reference, the work from that ends up looking very stiff, which is definitely a problem that I experienced at the beginning of really getting into using reference. It can feel like you're drawing too much from the reference and you're not getting that flow from organically drawing. And this method is where you can sit down and draw what the piece is going to be without any reference, so that it's all very loose. It's from your own mind, your imagination, and there's probably going to be anatomical issues, but there's also going to be a lot of your own view and your own vision into that sketch, and potentially more flow and fluidity to it. And then you set that piece aside, and then you draw it again where you do have reference and you know what the actual structure is going to be. And then you can combine those two and do a third drawing where you can bring in different features from both. And that really does help for you to look for areas where, when you're not using reference, where does that personality come through? Where do you shine more? And where are areas that do need to be a little bit closer to that drawing that had reference? And this is a bit of a side note to taking your own reference, but I love taking my own reference for hand poses, because you can get an almost perfect reference, but if you need that character to be holding something or gesturing in a certain way, that can be a lot harder to find. And with hands, I find that it's a lot easier to adapt that, to figure out the anatomy, where the hands, the fingers are going, and then to adapt that to your character. So I've always used my own hands for that. I can study how, say, men's hands look, take a picture of my own, and then adapt that so that it still works. And it's right there. It's nice and easy. It's attached to you while you're drawing. And I love that, just being able to pull up my camera, take a picture of that very specific pose, and then get it down. I actually use this all the time when I'm just sketching to get out ideas. I just sometimes just want that hand pose to be right, and they're very complex. So I really rely on being able to know exactly what the hand would be doing and what it actually looks like. And I honestly love being able to look up reference for all of the other details that happen in a piece beyond the anatomy of a character. I love being able to look up different types of fabric, the way that it drapes and folds, because different fabrics have different thicknesses and different textures, and it's just so much fun to be able to think about a character and try to consider what are different details that might be present for her or for him, and what can I do to really show that and push that forward. And if I wasn't looking up references and figuring out new ways to draw things, I wouldn't be able to make things more tailored to what I'm drawing in that moment. And it's so much fun to be able to go down these paths of looking for something new and then figuring something out that I love painting, or that I love how it looks in a piece. It is something that I have to be careful with, where you can just really go down the rabbit hole of looking for references and then getting caught up at enjoying looking at them, or struggling to find what you're looking for, and then spending way more time doing that than actually drawing or painting. So I have to be a little bit more thoughtful of that, but it is such an enjoyable process to be able to look for new ways to infuse life into your artwork. And the piece that I'm working on today was actually a commission, so thank you so much for the one who commissioned me. I absolutely loved working on this fairy. It was so much fun to be able to work on something a little bit different than what I've done for a little while. And don't forget to check out my shop if you'd like to get a copy of Nocturne or The Pin. I absolutely loved working on these, and think that this book is probably going to be the lasting Tober book for at least a while for me. So yeah, I'm excited to put it out there. And yeah, I do want to give a massive thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. You guys are absolutely amazing to me. You help me to be able to keep creating artwork, and yeah, I love you guys for that. Thank you. I do have a link to Patreon down below if you're interested in checking that out, and that's about it for today. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.